This room is just, it's so echoey. I can't film in the basement right now because we're actually like starting to build it, which is super exciting. But this tentative location has zero soundproofing on the walls. I was really hoping the beard would like absorb a little bit more. It doesn't work that way. Just the price of great follicles. It is what it is. Hey, we did an experiment today. Did you know when you capture your gameplay and your camera and you send it to Twitch, what your viewers are watching isn't what actually happened? Just this sheer amount of encoding and rendering that goes into a video is kind of mind-blowing. Not only is OBS first taking all your layers, flattening them into a single file, encoding it into a much smaller file, but then it's sent off to Twitch, where Twitch has to process and oftentimes also encode that video into multiple resolutions, and all of that happens within like 1 to 2 seconds between the time you stream and your viewer sees it. Can you hear the construction going on downstairs? I can hear it. It's driving me nuts. Hopefully you can. I don't know how many of you remember Twitch like 4 to 5 years ago, back when I started streaming a little bit more seriously, but the best latency you could get, no matter what, was like 25 seconds. So if you asked a streamer a question in chat, you had to wait 25 seconds to see if they even acknowledged your message. What I'm trying to say is, you younger streamers, you're all spoiled. You don't understand what we had to go through in order for you to get your sub 1 second latency. That's all. But when you send a video through all this processing, what actually happens to that video? Well, to find out, we sent a video through this process 1,000 times. And we did it publicly, actually. We did it on my personal Twitch channel while live. Here's the original video file.
They jump padded over here.
Got one?
At least one person did.
Who's rezzing?
That's not me.
It's a lifeline res? Lifeline.
This is my test of Twitch's video encoding. What you're watching right now is currently being captured by OBS to be rebroadcasted in 1 minute, which will then be captured again by OBS and rebroadcasted 1 minute later, over and over until we rebroadcast it 1,000 times. We just showed some rapid movement footage of some gameplay footage, and now we're kind of doing a test on some more stationary shots like you'd see during a just chatting stream. So, how's it looking so far, chat? This kind of experiment has been done on YouTube a couple times, most recently by massive tech YouTuber MKBHD. But Twitch and YouTube, or I should say live streaming and YouTube VODs, are completely different. On YouTube, you upload the file to YouTube, you wait for it to process, you download it, and you do it over and over again. The live streaming process is a little bit more difficult, so let me explain exactly how we rig this up. I set OBS to run with the exact settings that Twitch recommends for 1080-60 and with what most streamers actually use for their streams. We used NVENC since the laptop we ran this on at a 1660 Ti, so it has that nice Turing encoder, and we set it to max quality settings. I then pulled up the Twitch stream on a second monitor, played it full screen at source quality, and put a 1 minute delay on the stream inside of OBS. That way I play the original 1 minute video file inside OBS, and once the video file finishes, I switch to a different scene that's capturing the live stream on the second monitor. That way OBS captures that stream, restreams it to Twitch, which then it appears a minute later, and it captures and it streams, and it's an endless loop, and I can just let it go for it turns out, by the way, this took about 17 hours. You can see I set a timer at the bottom left corner, and because each clip was pretty much exactly a minute long, it made it really easy for people to figure out exactly which rebroadcast we were on. Oh, and then just for fun, I did the exact same thing on YouTube. So when we're done taking a look at Twitch, we can compare the two. So anyway, let's take a look. The difference between the first and second rebroadcast were pretty minimal. The text has a little bit of artifacting. My face during the gameplay scene it's a little bit softer, but I'm super impressed with the shot at the second half. It's very hard to tell the difference. Even if you zoom in on like my hair, I've got a little hair floof when I shot that, there's almost no difference between them. Weird stuff didn't really start happening until number 5. See, this is when chat started noticing that my audio was out of sync with the video, and it went downhill very fast. Like take a listen to me talking right here. What you're watching right now is currently being captured by OBS to be rebroadcasted in 1 minute. It turns out that Twitch ends up nudging the audio about 3 frames earlier than the video, which ends up being around 50 milliseconds. That's a pretty considerable amount of desync. I've actually had creators reach out to me and they're like, hey, my camera and my microphone aren't perfectly in sync, it's driving me nuts. And it was probably less than 50 milliseconds. Now I can finally say with confidence, like, don't worry about it that much. Twitch is gonna knock it 50 milliseconds out of place anyway. This is where we really start to see Twitch's strengths and weaknesses. You'll notice that movement is getting really bad. And the details on Lifeline's face end up pretty much surviving like hundreds of streams. It's pretty insane. Okay, number 100, I wanna show you something really crazy. I only did 100 streams to YouTube versus 1,000 like I did on Twitch because if you want to see the comparison between the two, 100 was really all you needed to see. In terms of just image quality, Twitch is clearly superior here. I think that has to do with Twitch's source quality, which I couldn't find a ton of details on from Twitch themselves, but it seems as if they're taking the video file and just sending it right back to viewers with very minimal processing. So I think the majority of quality loss when watching in source on Twitch actually comes from OBS. Versus YouTube, where everyone gets transcoding options, you know, the multiple resolutions, it's not just partners, which is really cool, but it also means every single resolution is getting re-encoded by YouTube, putting probably twice as much quality loss on this, which will blow your mind because when you look at the two, I was actually streaming to YouTube on their recommended settings, which had 2.5 times the bitrate. I was streaming to YouTube at 15 megabits per second versus 6 on Twitch. However, even though Twitch's image quality is clearly better here, Twitch is skipping way more frames. By this point, they've lost about 75% of their frames and it's down to about 15 FPS. And there are even a couple like super heavy stutters going on in this footage versus YouTube. But YouTube has only lost about half its frames, so making the whole thing, even though the image quality is worse, it's a much smoother video, which this whole thing and the difference between the two platforms is super fascinating. So I ran this test overnight and I watched until about rebroadcast number 200, and at about 150 I started noticing a serious issue. The volume was getting very, very low. Like every single rebroadcast, Twitch not only pushed the audio forward 3 frames, but they also brought it down like a fraction of a decibel. So to try to balance it out, I added a gain filter to the audio, trying to find that like perfect sweet spot where it just maintained a level volume. And I ended up with adding, I think it was 0.4 decibels every restream. And it seemed for the next like 20 to 30, like that was the play, like I nailed it. And then I woke up the next morning and the audio was gone. And you can actually see, like if you look at the video file of the entire test, like the audio just slowly disappear. The final like audible broadcast was number like 340. So I'll have Sam show that one and boost it up for you so you can hear the last little bit of audio on here.
Is the lifeline red?
This is my test of Twitch's video encoding. What you're watching right now is currently being... At this point, all details are gone, except for Lifeline's face, which is still going strong. Lots of colors have faded, some of the colors have shifted, like the red in the Senpai logo is now, it's over here. And lots of colors have just turned into magenta at this point, which is also something that happened during MKBHD's YouTube test. So I wonder if there's something to do with video encoding that like prioritizes magenta slightly over all the other ones. But you can also see right there, Twitch had a little bit of a hiccup midstream. So that became like burned into our clip. I'm not totally sure why Twitch tried to hurt my feelings and say I had 0 viewers, because we actually had about 300 to 500 viewers the entire test, which was wild to me. And number 1000, 0 audio anymore by this point, very few frames at this point. It looks like I've been put into one of those like pastel filters from the early days of Instagram where everything's just smudged to look nice. Yet you can still kind of make out the hidden message that says listen to stream beats during the last couple frames. So I call it a win. This experiment ended up being super interesting and a ton of fun, except for the first time I tried it, where Comcast shut it down after 100 rebroadcasts. Get it together, guys. And keep in mind, this is not a perfect, isolated test of Twitch's video encoding, because the broadcast had to go through both OBS and Twitch's encoding every single time. And that's gonna make a significant difference. And every single time I popped into the chat just to see how it was doing, there was always a couple people who were like, why is he even doing this? What does this accomplish? And the answer is nothing. I was just curious. Why does everything need to accomplish something? Try new things. I would encourage every one of you to go out and do more things just because it sounds interesting. So that's what I'll leave you with. Hit the like button if you found this interesting and you haven't done it already. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And guys, as always, happy streaming.